Declan Ward's heart sank when he saw the beautiful woman on the platform. This could not be his bride. A mistake had surely been made. Women that pretty did not marry broken men in the Montana territory. But she walked straight toward him and said four words that changed everything. "You must be Declan." He had sent for someone plain, not a beauty queen. Instead, fate delivered Amelia Cross, who looked like a star from the sky. She was so far beyond him, it felt like some kind of cruel joke. If you are listening to this, go on and drop your hometown in the comments. And you better stick with us, because this story has a heck of a surprise. The wind at Birch Creek Station cut like a knife that cold November day. Declan jammed his weathered hands deep into his coat pockets, waiting. He had that look of a man doing something he was not quite sure about. He was 34, but the Montana sun and wind had added some years. His dark hair was already starting to show some silver at the sides. His gray eyes were quiet from spending way too much time alone. He was a big, broad-shouldered man, built from years of hard labor. But he had a weariness about him, like he had given up on good things. He was half hoping that stagecoach from Helena would not show up at all. What kind of man has to buy a wife from a newspaper advertisement? The whole deal felt desperate, like admitting defeat to the whole world. But the simple truth was, his big ranch needed a woman's hand. His mother had been gone for 5 years and his younger brother for 3. Since then, Declan ran the whole 300-acre ranch by his lonesome. He had a fine herd of cattle and good horses, but none of it mattered. Not when he came home every night to a cold and silent cabin. He tried to hire on some help, but the young ranch hands never stayed, and the few women in town were either married or spoken for. Besides, they all said Declan Ward was just too quiet and too haunted. They were not wrong about the ghosts he carried with him from the war. So he finally sent a short, honest letter to the Matrimonial News. He had that guarded look about him. His ad was simple. Rancher, 34 years old, seeking a practical wife. She had to be tough, a hard worker, and fine with being alone. He chose his words with care, practical, hardy, and willing to work. He hoped for a sensible woman, maybe a widow who knew what was what. This life was about partnership, not poetry. Survival came before sweet talk. He got back 3 letters. The first one was from a Missouri woman who rambled on, talking about her delicate nature. He tossed that one right in the fire. The second was so businesslike it made his own ad sound like a love letter. But the third one from Amelia Cross of Boston, that one was different. It was direct, smart, and had a touch of desperation that he surely understood. "Mr. Ward," it said, "I am 26 and need a fresh start, something fierce. I grew up on a horse farm, so I am no stranger to hard work. I do not need romance, just an honest place to work. Somewhere my past is not going to follow me. I can help with the whole ranch. I am healthy, I do not complain, and I am a woman of my word." That was it. Her pure honesty was what got him. No games, no pretending. He sent her the travel money that same week and tried not to think on it too hard. It was just a practical arrangement. That is what he kept telling himself. He waited 8 long weeks, and in that time he cleaned the cabin for the first time in months. He even fixed the porch step and that stubborn window. Then he heard the stagecoach. As the rumble echoed, Declan's stomach did a flip. What if she took one look and ran? What if this town was too much and she got right back on that stage? What if the whole town of Birch Creek was right and this was a terrible mistake? The stage rounded the bend, with 6 horses kicking up dust like smoke. The driver, John Hutchkins, and his shotgun rider, Tom Porter, were bundled up tight. Hutchkins pulled the team to a stop, as smooth as could be. He had been driving these tricky mountain roads for 20 years. "Afternoon, Declan," he called. You could hear the smirk in his voice. In a small town, there are no secrets. Every soul in Birch Creek knew why Declan Ward was standing on that platform. "John," Declan nodded, his eyes locked on the stage door as Tom Porter opened it up. First off the stage was Ezra Johnson, the merchant, followed by the banker's wife, Mrs. Whitmore. She was clutching her bags and complaining about the roads, same as always. And then she appeared. The woman who stepped down was nothing like what Declan had been picturing. He had waited 8 long weeks, but she was beyond anything he'd imagined. She was beautiful. Not just pretty, but the kind of beautiful that makes a man forget to breathe. She stood tall for a woman, about 5'7", with a grace you didn't see out here. Even her heavy traveling dress couldn't quite hide her elegant figure. Her hair seemed to be a rich auburn, catching the light from under her bonnet. But it was her face that stopped him dead in his tracks, with its fine bones and high cheekbones. Her mouth looked like it was made for smiling, though she wasn't smiling then. And her eyes, as they scanned the platform, were a stunning, intelligent green. This couldn't be her. Not the practical woman who wrote about horse farms. Women who looked like this didn't just show up in Montana territory looking for work. And they certainly didn't answer letters from a rough rancher like Declan Ward. But she was walking right toward him, her bag in her hand, looking composed as you please. "Mr. Ward," she said. Her voice was clear with that crisp sound of New England money. Declan felt a bit foolish as he remembered to take off his hat. "Yes, ma'am, I'm Declan Ward." "Amelia Cross," she introduced herself, but didn't offer a hand to shake. "I trust my telegram from Helena reached you." He nodded. "It did, yes." They just stood there for a moment in the wind. Declan's mind was spinning. This had to be a mistake. She was meant for someone else. A woman this fine couldn't possibly be for him. He was about to offer to pay her way back, give her an easy out. But before he could speak, she asked, "Is something wrong, Mr. Ward?" He stammered, "Miss Cross, I think there might have been some kind of confusion." Her green eyes were steady on his, filled with a weary understanding. "You were expecting someone plainer," she said. "Someone older, perhaps, more suited to this life." "I didn't mean to," he started, but she cut him off. "It is perfectly understandable." She glanced around at the rough little town. "My appearance is not what you advertise for, I imagine. But I assure you, Mr. Ward, I am who I said I was. I can work, and I will work. All this way just to turn back now." There was a fire in her voice, something real close to desperation. A grit that told him whatever she left in Boston was a whole lot worse than whatever was waiting here in Montana. "Ma'am, I just want to be certain we're clear on what we're agreeing to," he said. She just tilted her head. "Mr. Ward, I have spent 3 days on a train and 2 more on that awful stagecoach. I haven't seen a proper bed. In nearly a week, I've got dust in places I didn't know existed, and I'm sure I smell like a horse. What I need right now is not for you to worry about me. What I need is a straight answer. Tell me, does the arrangement we made in our letters still stand or not? Or are you fixing to send me back home because I don't look worn out enough for you yet?" Well, despite everything, Declan felt the corner of his mouth twitch. This woman had some real steel in her. "The arrangement stands if you still want it. I mean, you haven't even seen the ranch yet. It's not—" He paused, trying to find the right words. "It's nothing fancy, Miss Cross. It's a working ranch, a good 30 miles from town. The cabin's decent, but it's small, the work is hard, and Montana winters ain't like the ones back in Boston. I don't need fancy, Mr. Ward." She looked him square in the eye. "I need honest work and a fresh start. You offered that, and I accepted, unless you're taking back your offer." "No, ma'am, I'm not." "Then can we get going? It's getting mighty cold. And I do believe I saw snow clouds building on the horizon." Declan just nodded and pointed. "This way," he said, leading her to his wagon. He picked up her trunk from Tom Porter. He paid no mind to the old man's know-it-all grin and tossed it in the back. Amelia climbed right up on the seat. She didn't even wait for a hand, just settled her skirts like she'd done it 100 times. Declan took his place beside her. He gathered the reins of his 2 big draft horses, Ned and Sadie, who'd been snoozing while they waited. As they pulled out of the station yard, Declan saw curious faces peeking out from windows. He just knew Mrs. Whitmore was already making a beeline for the general store to spread the news. By nightfall, everyone in Birch Creek would know Declan Ward's mail-order bride was here, and she was nothing like they expected. They rode in silence for the first mile, following the bumpy road that led out toward the Ward Ranch. The afternoon was fading fast, with the sun already dipping toward the mountains and casting long shadows. This country was beautiful in a hard kind of way, with rolling fields, pine trees, and creeks cutting through the land. And you could always see the mountains way off in the distance, their tops already white with an early snow. "So," Amelia finally spoke up, "how long have you had the ranch?" "It was my father's," Declan said, keeping his eyes on the road. He homesteaded it in 1867, right after the war. He built it up for 8 years before his heart gave out. My mama held on a few more years, with me and my brother helping. It's been just mine for about 3 years now, though truth is, I've been working it since I was 17. She looked at him. You fought in the war? Yes, ma'am. His tone made it clear that was all he was going to say. Amelia was quiet for a second. Then she said, my father bred and trained horses, Morgans mostly. The farm was in our family for 3 generations. I grew up working with them, so I meant what I said in my letter. What happened to the farm? Her hands tightened on her purse. My father passed 2 years ago. The doctor said heart failure, but I reckon he just plain wore out. He was 63 and had worked his whole life. The farm was mortgaged to the hilt. He'd borrowed money to expand the breeding. When he passed, the debts came due and my brother couldn't manage. He sold the place inside of 6 months. I had to go live with my aunt in Boston. She's a well-to-do widow and she offered me a place to stay, Amelia said, her voice carefully flat. But she had her own ideas about what my future ought to look like. Declan shot her a look, understanding. She wanted you to marry. She wanted me to marry well, Amelia corrected him. A man with money and a good name, one who wouldn't mind that my family was in trade. There was a sharp edge to her voice now. My aunt paraded several men by over 18 months. They were all polite, proper, and I could not stand a single one. The last man, a banker named Worthington, made it clear he expected a wife to be a pretty decoration, bear his children, and keep her opinions to herself. And you turned him down? I did, she said, and not very gently. My aunt was not happy. She called me ungrateful and said I was squandering my chances. She reminded me I was 26 years old and had no business being so picky. She said if I wouldn't accept a suitable man, I could make my own way. She gave me a month. So you answered my advertisement. Yours was the most honest one I read. You did not promise romance or a fancy life, just a working deal between two people. That honesty meant more than any flowery words. Declan took it all in, understanding her better now. He could see why a woman like Amelia Cross would make such a choice. She wasn't running to something. She was running away from something, just like him. They were both just trying to find some solid ground. I meant what I said too, he told her. The work is hard and it gets lonely. We're 30 miles from Birch Creek, which is barely a town. Maybe 50 people live there. When the snows come, we can be stuck out here for weeks. The ranch is 300 acres, and I'm running it by myself. I've got 100 head of cattle and a dozen horses. I keep chickens, some pigs, a milk cow. There's a garden spot, but it's been let go these last years. The cabin's just 4 rooms, main room, kitchen, bedroom, and a storage room. That's it, she smiled. It sounds perfect, Amelia said softly, a real smile finally lighting up her face. I truly mean it, she said. No more fancy parties or folks judging my clothes. Just honest work and fresh air. You have no idea how good that sounds to me, especially after 2 long years trapped in Boston. Declan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He thought maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be a disaster after all. We ought to discuss the terms, Amelia said, her voice turning all business. You help on the ranch, I give you a home, and we get married. But I figure we should wait a bit to see if we can even stand each other. How does a month sound? Declan was surprised. He had not thought that far ahead. The whole idea still felt unreal. That sounds fair, he said. In a separate room for now? I can take that storage room you mentioned, she offered. No, ma'am, Declan insisted. You traveled for 5 whole days. You take the bed, I promise. I've slept in worse places. She looked him over for a second, then nodded. All right then. Thank you. Soon they came over a hill. Below them lay the Ward Ranch, tucked beside a creek and some cottonwood trees. A solid log cabin with a big stone chimney and a wide front porch stood proudly. Behind it was a large barn, a smokehouse, and a little chicken coop. Corrals held horses with their shaggy winter coats, and cattle dotted the far-off land. Declan knew it was not a grand place, certainly not the kind that would make a man rich. But it was his, built by his daddy's own hands, and he felt a deep pride swell in his chest. "Oh my," Amelia breathed beside him. "Mr. Ward, it is just beautiful." He glanced over at her, surprised. Her eyes were scanning the property, her face filled with pure and simple delight. "The mountains rising up behind it," she said. "And that creek, does it run all year?" "Yes, ma'am, it never runs dry." "And are those your breeding horses in the corral?" "Some of them," he said. "The best are in the barn. I have a mare who is about to foal." "May I please see her now?" she asked, "after 5 days stuck in a wagon?" "I would surely love to stretch my legs and see your horses." How could he possibly say no? He drove down to the cabin and helped her step down. She took his hand without hesitation this time. He led her to the warm barn. The air was thick with the smell of hay, horses, and leather. For Declan, it had always been the smell of home. He lit a lantern and guided her down the aisle. He took her all the way to the last stall, where his prize mare, Juniper, stood, heavily pregnant. "This here is Juniper," he said, opening the stall door. "She's the best of my stock. 7 years old, built just right, and smart as they come. This'll be her third foal. The sire's a Morgan stallion from Wyoming." But Amelia wasn't listening. She had already stepped inside the stall, moving with a quiet confidence. She knew her way around horses, that was clear. Juniper turned to her, curious instead of scared. "Hello, beautiful girl," Amelia murmured, letting the mare sniff her outstretched hand. Juniper breathed softly on her palm, then let Amelia stroke her neck. "Oh, you are just lovely, aren't you?" Before Declan could say a word, Amelia's hands were expertly checking Juniper's sides and belly. She was feeling for the foal's position like she'd done it 100 times. "Well, she's dropped," Amelia announced. "The foal is engaged. I'd say you have 48 hours at most, maybe less." Declan just stared, a little stunned. "She started waxing some yesterday. This morning she seemed unsettled. I've been checking on her every few hours." "Good." Amelia gave Juniper a final pat. "She's in excellent shape, Mr. Ward. You have cared for her well." "Have you ever helped with a foaling before?" he asked, still trying to place her. "I was 12 when I helped my father with my first one. I've probably attended 50 foalings by now, maybe more." She smiled at his surprised expression. "I did tell you I grew up on a horse farm. You didn't mention you worked it like a hired hand." "Well, you didn't ask," she said, brushing off hay. "What time do you usually put out the evening feed?" "Around 5 o'clock. "Then let me get my things inside and I can change and help you out. Unless you would rather I didn't." "No," Declan said quickly. "No, if you're willing, I'd be mighty glad for the help. It will be good to have another set of hands, especially if Juniper decides tonight's the night." They walked back to the cabin and Declan carried her trunk onto the porch. The inside was neat but sparse. The main room had a table, a couple of chairs, and a big stone fireplace. A kitchen was set up in one corner, with 2 doors leading off to the bedrooms. "It is not much," Declan began, but Amelia cut him off gently. "It is clean and it is solid, Mr. Ward. That is more than enough. Now, which room will be mine?" He showed her to the bedroom he had cleared out for her that very morning. "I'll leave you to settle in," he told her. "Take all the time you need. I will start on the evening chores." "Give me 10 minutes to change," Amelia replied. "Then I will come and join you." And she was as good as her word. He had barely started mucking out stalls when she appeared in the barn. She had traded her traveling clothes for a simple dark blue work dress, ready to get her hands dirty. She was already wearing a heavy apron, with her hair tied back in a braid. He saw she even had a pair of work gloves. "Brought them from Boston," she said. Declan shook his head. "Putting you to work mucking stalls is a poor welcome." "It is the only welcome I want," Amelia said, grabbing a pitchfork. "Where do I start?" They worked in a quiet rhythm together as the afternoon turned to evening. She knew her way around a barn, and he started to think this arrangement might work. After the chores were done, they sat down for a simple supper of venison stew. They talked about the ranch, a comfortable and businesslike conversation. "I will ride into Birch Creek tomorrow," Declan said. "I can ask Reverend Mitchell to come out next week for the ceremony." Amelia set her cup down. "That is acceptable, but Mr. Ward, I want to be clear. This is a practical arrangement. You do not need to pretend it is anything else." She looked him straight in the eye. "I saw how you looked at me at the stagecoach, like a man who bought a horse that was too fine for his stable. Declan felt his face grow warm because she was not wrong. I was not expecting someone like you, he admitted. I know, she said, but I did not come here because I had better options. I came here because this was my only option to escape a terrible situation. I am not too good for this life. I will earn my place here through my work. He studied her across the table, this beautiful and determined woman. I can accept that, he said finally. Good. Then we understand each other, she replied, and started to clear the table. You go check on Juniper. I will see to the kitchen. Declan stood up but hesitated at the door. Miss Cross, he said, for what it is worth, I am glad you came. She smiled, and he saw that flash of steel in her again. I intend to make certain this works, Mr. Ward. Good night. Good night, he said, walking out into the cold November dark. He made his way to the barn, his breath white in the air. Juniper was restless in her stall. The foal would be coming soon. For the first time in 3 long years, lamplight in the cabin meant someone else was there. Someone to share the work and break the heavy silence of the ranch. This deal with a stranger should have felt all wrong, like a big mistake. But as Declan stood watch over his mare in the quiet dark, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Maybe he was not so alone anymore. A horse's scream ripped him from sleep at 2:30 in the morning. He was grabbing his boots and coat before he was even fully awake, heading for the door. A dim lamp was still burning, a habit during foaling season. He saw Amelia's door was open. She was already gone. He ran to the barn and found her already inside the stall with Juniper. She had his huge coat over her nightgown and was wearing boots 3 sizes too big. The mare was down, thrashing in pain and fear. She's been at this for 20 minutes, Amelia said, her voice tight and urgent. Nothing's happening. I heard her from the cabin. We need more light, Mr. Ward, right now. Declan lit all the lanterns, making the stall bright as day. Amelia's hands were on Juniper's belly, her face focused. The foal's turned wrong, she said. I have to check. Do you have the right kind of soap? In the tack room. He was back in 30 seconds. Amelia was already rolling up her sleeves, moving fast and sure. Though Declan saw her hands were shaking, maybe from the cold, or maybe fear. Hold her head, Amelia told him. Keep her calm. Declan knelt by Juniper, stroking her neck and talking soft, like he always did with scared animals. The mare looked at him, her eyes showing pain, but also trust. Amelia scrubbed her arms clean and then gently began her work. Her face was a mask of concentration, her hands telling her what she could not see. One leg's folded back, she finally said. If we cannot fix this. She did not have to finish. Declan knew what it meant. He had lost horses this way before. Can you fix it? He asked. I'll try, she said, but you need to know. We could lose them both. She is getting tired. Just do what you have to, Declan said. Amelia nodded. She took a deep breath and got to work. For the next 45 minutes, Declan saw the most careful work he had ever witnessed. Amelia was patient, her arm deep inside the mare, trying to save her. Her face was a mask of concentration, trying to turn that foal's tangled leg. Sweat beaded on her brow in the cold November air, her jaw set with determination. Declan saw the muscles in her jaw twitching. She had to pull her arm out twice, flexing her tired fingers. Each time her eyes looked like they were apologizing. It is all right, he said gently. Take your time. I almost have it, she grunted, but the leg keeps slipping back on me. There, I got it. Come on now, sweetheart, she crooned. Work with me. She was talking to the mare, her voice steady and calm, even though her arm must have been aching. That is it, she breathed. There we go. The leg is forward. Both legs are forward now. Mr. Ward, on the next push, we need to pull. You have the ropes? He already held them out. He knew just what to do. Together they looped the soft ropes around the foal's tiny legs. When Juniper pushed again, they pulled, steady and firm, right in rhythm with the mare. One pull, then two, and suddenly the head appeared, followed by the shoulders. Then, in a sudden rush, the whole foal slid out onto the straw and lay completely still. Amelia moved fast, clearing its nose and rubbing it hard with a clean rag. The little creature gasped, coughed, and took its first breath. A perfect little filly. Her coat was already the rich chestnut color of her mother. "Oh, thank God," Amelia whispered, and Declan saw she was crying. Tears streamed down her face as she worked, making sure the little one was okay. Her hands were trembling, but her touch was gentle. Juniper, exhausted, lifted her head. The mare nickered softly to her baby. The foal answered with a tiny whinny. "We did it," Declan said, his own voice hoarse with emotion. "Amelia, you did it." She sat back on her heels, a mess of straw and sweat, her hair falling from its braid. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, but she laughed, a sound of pure relief. That one sound changed her completely, washing away all her careful composure. "She is perfect," Amelia said, laughing and crying. "Look, Mr. Ward, she is absolutely perfect." They stayed in the stall for the next hour, watching over the new mother and baby. They watched the foal struggle up on its long, wobbly legs to find its first meal. By the time they finally stepped out of the barn, the sky was starting to get light. At the pump, Amelia tried to wash up, but her hands were too cramped and cold to work the handle. Declan took over, pumping the water while she scrubbed her hands and arms. He could see how badly her hands were shaking now that the hard part was over. "You should get inside now." "Go on and get warm," he said gently. "I can finish up here." "I am all right." "Amelia." It was the first time he'd said her name, and she looked up, surprised. "You've been out in this cold for 3 hours. You are shaking something fierce. Please go inside. I will be in soon." She looked ready to argue, but a hard shiver made up her mind for her. She just nodded. "All right, but I will check on them later." "We both will," he promised, watching her leave. He saw her stumble in his big boots and felt something turn over in his chest. The woman he met yesterday looked like she belonged in a fancy Boston parlor, but she had just saved his best mare, and her foal with nothing but pure grit. She was far more than what he had first thought. She was something else entirely. When Declan went inside, Amelia was already by the fire, wrapped in a quilt. Her hair was still damp, and she had made a pot of strong black coffee. She poured him a cup without a word. "Thank you," he said, the warmth of welcome friend. "I ought to be thanking you," but Amelia answered. "I could not have done it by myself. Your steady hand made all the difference. You knew exactly what to do. My father used to say the best help is someone who knows when to act and when to wait. You did both." She sipped her coffee. "To be honest, I was terrified out there, you know. When I felt the foal was positioned wrong, I was scared we would lose them both." "But you did not lose them," he said. "No," she corrected. "We saved them. Mr. Ward, I need you to understand, I meant what I wrote about being used to hard work. I am not some fragile thing that will break at the first sign of trouble. I grew up with this life, and I am not going anywhere." Her voice was filled with a fierce pride. He knew she had something to prove, and he wondered about her life in Boston. He wondered who had made her feel the need to defend herself so strongly. "I can see that," he said quietly, "and I am glad, not just for saving Juniper." He paused, trying to find the right words. "I think this arrangement might just work out. Maybe as more than an arrangement, a real partnership, if you are willing." Amelia looked at him over her cup. "I am willing, but are you? I saw your face yesterday. You thought it was all a mistake." "I thought you were too beautiful," he admitted honestly, "too refined, too everything for a place like this, and for a man like me. I figured you would take one look and leave, but now I know I was wrong. I reckon I was the one who made the mistake, not in sending for a wife, but in thinking I knew what kind of woman belonged out here. I thought being pretty and refined meant a person was weak." He met her gaze. "You are not weak, Amelia. That much is plain to see." "No," she said, "I am not. But I am also not as tough as I let on. Tonight, when that leg was stuck, when I thought we would lose them both," her voice cracked, "I was scared to death. Not just of losing the horses, but of failing, of proving you were right to doubt me and giving you a reason to send me on my way. I am not going to send you back. You say that now. I say it because I mean it." Declan set his cup down. He leaned in close. "Amelia, listen. I do not know a thing about fancy manners or all that proper courting, but I know horses, and I know the people who have a way with them. What you did tonight, that skill and patience, well, a person just cannot fake that. You are the real deal. And if you are willing to stay and truly build a life here, then I am willing to be the kind of partner you deserve." She was quiet for a good long while. He saw tears in her eyes by the firelight, but she blinked them away hard. "I am willing," she finally said, "more than willing. This place, Mr. Ward, this is the first time in 2 years I have felt like I could just breathe. Like I could be my own self, not who everyone else expects. I do not want to lose that. I do not want to lose this." "Then you will not. We will make it work." They sat there in a comfortable silence, finishing their coffee. The sky in the east kept getting brighter. A rooster crowed somewhere, telling everyone the day had started. The normal sounds of morning began to drift in, birds chirping and the horses shifting around in the corrals. "We ought to try and get a little sleep," Declan said after a bit. "It has been a mighty long night. I want to check on Juniper first." "Me too." They walked to the barn together and found the mare and her new foal were doing just fine. Juniper was up and eating hay, and the little filly was nursing like she was born for it, her tail just a twitching. "She is going to need a name," Amelia said, while her eyes soft as she watched the foal. "You ought to name her. You are the one who brought her into this world." "We both did." But Amelia smiled and thought for a second. "How about Hope? It just seems to fit somehow." "Hope?" Declan tested the name, looking at the wobbly-legged filly. "I like it. Hope it is." When they got back to the cabin, the sun was breaking right over the mountains. It was a beautiful sight. Declan started to go to the storage room, but Amelia called out to him. "Mr. Ward." "Declan." She tried his first name, a little unsure. "Would it be terribly wrong of me to say that I am glad I am here? After everything, I am truly glad." He felt a real smile spread across his face, the first one since she arrived. "I am glad too, Amelia. Get some rest now. We will check on our Hope again around noon." "All right, good night. Or I guess good morning." "Good morning." But sleep did not come easy for Declan. He lay there on that narrow bed, thinking about the night. He kept replaying it all, seeing Amelia's determined face in the lantern light and hearing her strong, steady voice. He remembered the sheer grit in her voice and how she'd cried when that foal finally breathed. She was not putting on a show. She was just doing what needed to be done with a whole lot of skill and courage. That woman had a true heart for the work, and he had been plain wrong about her. Utterly and completely wrong. That thought brought another one right behind it. What else had he been wrong about? For 3 years, Declan told himself he was fine alone, that he did not need anyone. He figured the ranch and the animals were company enough. He'd let the ghosts of his past convince him that he was just built for a solitary life. All that loss had piled up, making him think he was better off on his own. But watching Amelia move through that barn, hearing her gentle voice calm that mare, he felt something stir. It was a feeling he reckoned had died in him a long time ago. It was not just that she was beautiful, Lord knows she was. It was something deeper, a sense of knowing. It was like he'd found someone who understood, someone who valued the same hard things he did, who could share the meaning behind all this work. The feeling was both terrifying and a little bit wonderful. When he finally slept, he dreamed of green eyes and auburn hair and hands that could bring life into the world. He woke to the smell of bacon and strong coffee, confused for a moment. The sun was already high. In the main room, Amelia was at the stove, looking right at home. She looked like she belonged in his kitchen, like she had been there for years instead of just hours. "I hope you don't mind," she said, seeing him. "I thought we could both use a real breakfast after last night." She started explaining about finding the bread and the eggs, her voice trailing off. "Amelia," he said, his voice gentle, "it's more than fine. Thank you." She relaxed a little. "I just was not sure about your usual routine." "Do not worry about my routine. Whatever you want to do is fine by me." They ate at the small table, and he found himself just watching her. She asked smart questions about the work, about wintering the cattle. She wanted to know all about bringing them in and what he fed them when snow was on the ground. She clearly knew a thing or two about this life. "My father always said cattle are honest, but unforgiving," Amelia mentioned. "He said a horse might survive your mistake, but a cow won't give you that second chance." "Your father was a wise man." She paused for a moment. "That Reverend Mitchell you spoke of, when did you plan to have him come out?" "I was thinking next week, if that works for you." She nodded. Yes, next week is fine. Well, no sense in delaying this, is there? Her face was a blank slate, ready for a loveless deal. He could tell she was expecting nothing more than their arrangement. But looking at her, that just didn't sit right with him. Not after she worked so hard to save his mare and that little foal. He knew he had to offer her more than just a business transaction. Amelia, he said, I know we agreed this was just an arrangement. And I'm not asking you to pretend it is something it ain't. He paused, trying to find the right words. I think we can build something real. Not just a working deal, but a true marriage. If you're willing. Her eyes shot up, full of surprise. What exactly are you saying, Declan? I'm saying I like you. I respect your courage. Maybe we don't have to just settle for a convenient deal. More, she repeated softly. You mean? I mean a real friendship, a true partnership, maybe more down the road. Amelia was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. That sounds mighty frightening, she finally said. It does, he admitted, but not as frightening as spending the next 40 years lonely together. Her eyes met his. I don't want that either. All right, we can try. But my folks, they had a real courtship. They cared for each other. They chose each other. We never had that choice. So we make the choice right now, he said firmly. We choose to try. To try, she echoed, a small smile finally breaking through. I should warn you, I'm more at home in a barn than a fancy parlor. Good, Declan said with relief. That's exactly the kind of partner I need. I don't need someone worried about the latest fashions. I need a partner who'll tell me when I'm being an idiot. Someone who'll be honest with me. Can you do that? Yes, she said. Can you do the same for me? I can sure try, he promised. They shook on it across the table, then both laughed. Come on, he said. Let's go. Let's check on Hope before we talk the day away. That little filly was thriving, nursing well and already showing her spirit. She was curious and bold, not a lick of fear in her. Juniper watched over that foal with a new mother's fire, but she let Declan and Amelia right into the stall. She seemed to know they were the folks who helped. Well, she is going to be a real beauty, Amelia said, running a hand down Hope's back as the foal nosed her pockets for a treat. She's built strong. She'll have her mama's stamina, and hopefully her calm nature too. Juniper's the calmest horse I've ever seen. Are you fixing to train her for riding? Depends on what she shows me. If she's got the temperament, I'll train her. If not, she'll make a fine addition to the breeding program. They spent the rest of the morning doing regular ranch work, feeding all the animals and checking the water. They mended a stretch of loose fence and moved some supplies. Amelia worked right alongside him. She learned his ways without a single complaint, asking smart questions when she needed to. By that afternoon, Declan realized he was actually enjoying himself in a way he hadn't in years. It was just plain satisfying to have someone to talk to while he worked, someone who understood what he was doing and why. They were in the barn organizing tack when Amelia spoke. Your mother was a good woman. Where are your folks buried? Declan paused, surprised by the question. Up on the rise behind the house, there's a grove of aspen trees there. My mother loved that spot. May I see it? He studied her face, trying to figure out why she was asking. You can, but why? Because this is going to be my home too, Amelia said so simply. I'd like to pay my respects to the people who built this place. Something in Declan's chest cinched up tight. This will be my home too. She didn't say it like it was just a deal. She meant it. Home. He nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat, and led her up the hill. The grove was peaceful, with 3 simple wooden crosses marking the graves of his father, his mother, and his brother, Thomas. Someone had planted wildflowers around the crosses long ago. Even though they were dormant for winter, you could see where they'd bloomed. Amelia stood quietly, reading the names. After a moment, she said that Thomas was only 22 when he passed. A fever took him in just 3 days. He was healthy one morning and gone by the end of the week. Declan stopped, surprised by the fresh pain in his voice. I couldn't save him. Just then, Amelia's hand found his, her fingers lacing gently through his own. It was the first time they had ever really touched, and the simple gesture was so kind. Declan felt a wall inside him crack open. He was supposed to take over the ranch, Declan heard himself say. The words just came tumbling out. He was better with people than me, just more outgoing. Business. Thomas was the charmer everyone loved. I was just the serious one keeping it all together. After he died, I felt I had failed our whole family. My pa built this ranch from dust, and it was supposed to be for Thomas. Then suddenly, it was all on my shoulders. I always worried I was not enough for the task. You are more than enough, Amelia said firmly. Look what you have done here, Declan. You held this place together all by your lonesome. That is not failure, that is true strength. It just feels like being stubborn, he admitted. Well, maybe real strength is just stubbornness that refuses to quit, she answered. Thank you for trusting me, she said softly. Now, I think I should tell you why I really left Boston. You do not have to. I want to. My aunt tried to marry me off to a rich banker named Worthington. She accepted his proposal on my behalf. She told me marriage was for security and that love was a foolish, childish dream. I said I would rather be poor and free than wealthy and trapped. She just called me dramatic. Then Worthington came to call. He tried to force a kiss, saying my aunt promised him I would be an obedient wife. So I slapped him hard across the face. Declan gave a firm nod. Good. My aunt was just furious. She said I had ruined my life, and then she threw me out of her home for good. She gave me only 1 week to leave. That is when I saw your advertisement and took my only chance to escape. I am mighty glad you took that chance, Declan said quietly, and I am glad you ended up right here. I know, she said. You have been kind from the start. You treat me like a person, not property to be controlled. I just treated you how folks ought to be treated. She smiled through her tears. Exactly, and that is everything I ever needed. They walked back toward the house hand in hand, and Declan knew in his heart that nothing would ever be the same again. He had hired a bride, but he was starting to think he had found a partner instead. Amelia looked up at the big ranch house, no longer a place of fear, but a place of hope. She had run from a cage made of gold, only to find freedom in the wide-open heart of Texas. Declan squeezed her hand, a silent promise that her days of being managed were over. For the first time, he felt the weight on his shoulders lighten, not because he was strong, but because he was no longer alone. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant colors, a perfect backdrop for a new beginning. She had answered an advertisement looking for a wife, but she had found a home instead. And Declan, who thought he was just protecting his family's legacy, realized he was building a future of his own. Welcome home, Amelia, he said, and the words felt as true as the solid ground beneath their feet. She simply smiled, and that was answer enough for the both of them. As they reached the porch, the story of the lonely rancher and the runaway bride was finally turning into a love story. Their journey had started with a contract, but it was clear to both of them now that it was heading somewhere much more real. And as the first star appeared in the Texas sky, they both understood that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. About Amelia. When she first arrived, he figured she was just a pretty delicate lady. Boy, was he wrong. She was strong as steel, and she chose to be here with him. And that realization did not scare him one bit. In fact, it felt like the first right thing that had happened to him in years. That evening, Amelia said she wanted to expand the garden come next spring. She had big plans for vegetables, herbs, and even an apple orchard. Declan said it was a whole lot of work, but she did not mind. It would make them more self-sufficient and save trips to town. He agreed they could plan it out. Then he looked at her and said, "You're planning for the long haul." "I am," she told him. He smiled. "That means you're planning to stay." "I told you I was not going anywhere, Declan, and I meant it." After checking on Hope and Juniper, they sat by the fire. They talked about supplies for the winter, easy and comfortable, just like a married couple. But they were not married yet, just learning how to build a life together. Declan stopped her before she went to bed. "Amelia, thank you for coming here, for everything. Thank you for being someone worth trying with," she said softly. After she left, he sat there thinking. He had asked for a practical wife, but he got Amelia, who was so much more. He knew he ought to guard his heart, but as he settled into his bed, listening to the wind, he could not stop himself from hoping. For the first time in 3 years, he was not alone. He could finally imagine a real future, one that was more than just surviving. The days that followed fell into a rhythm that felt both new and natural. A couple of days after Hope was born, Declan made a trip to Birch Creek. He came back with supplies and some news. He told her Reverend Mitchell was coming on Sunday to perform the ceremony. Amelia just nodded and went right back to kneading her bread dough, as calm as you please. The days that followed settled into a comfortable and natural rhythm. 2 days after Hope was born, Declan went to Birch Creek. He returned with supplies and news that Reverend Mitchell would be coming the next Sunday. Amelia simply nodded and kept kneading bread dough as if it were everyday news. Their days fell into a rhythm as normal as sunrise. They worked from dawn till dusk, the talk between them getting easier. Amelia learned all the little quirks of the ranch, like the barn door that always stuck and which hens were feeling broody. She found the best fishing spots on the creek. Declan learned she hummed when she worked, a soft, pleasant sound. He saw she could gentle a nervous horse with just her voice, and that she'd never, ever kill a spider. Her daddy taught her they were good for keeping the flies down. That Sunday came bright but bitter cold. Reverend Mitchell, a kindly man in his 60s with a gentle way about him, showed up right at noon in his buggy. He was the kind of fellow who could put anyone at ease. He never asked a single question about their arrangement. He just performed the ceremony in the main room of the cabin, with a fire crackling in the hearth. The winter sun streamed through the glass. Declan said his vows with a steady voice, and he meant every single word. Amelia's voice was softer, but just as sure. Her green eyes were serious as she made her promises. She promised to stand by him, no matter what came their way. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Declan gave her a short, simple kiss on the cheek. He felt her hand tremble just a bit in his, and just like that, they were married, bound together for good. It should have felt like the world shifted. Instead, it felt like a door had just quietly opened, waiting for them to step through when they were ready. After the Reverend left, Declan and Amelia stood on the porch watching him head back toward town. "Well," Amelia said after a long, quiet spell, "I reckon that's that." Declan asked if she was all right, and she said she was. He told her they didn't have to change a thing just yet. They could just take their time. "I know," she said, turning to look at him. "Thank you for that." "We said we'd build something real," he reminded her, "and real things take time." She gave him a small smile then, and he saw some of the tightness leave her shoulders. "They surely do. Now come on, Mr. Ward." "Them cows won't feed themselves," she said, "and you promised to show me how to fix that fence." Even married, she still called him Mr. Ward. It kept a little bit of formal space between them. Declan tried to tell himself it didn't matter, that it would change in its own time. But sometimes sitting by the fire at night, he'd catch himself wishing he could hear his first name on her lips. He wanted to hear it just like she'd said it the morning their sweet little Hope was born. The weeks went on. The first real snow of the season finally came. This wasn't no light dusting. It was a proper Montana blizzard. It left 2 feet of powder on the ground and dropped the temperature way below zero. They were snowed in for 4 days. And in that time, Declan learned some things. He learned Amelia could play a mean game of chess. She'd read more books than anyone he'd ever known, and had a dry wit that could catch him by surprise. He also learned that the walls of that little cabin were a whole lot thinner than he ever imagined. From his room, he'd listen to her getting ready for bed, the sound of her so close. It was a strange mix of comfort and torture, knowing she was his wife, but not really. During those long winter nights, they started to really talk to each other. Amelia told him all about growing up on her father's horse farm. She talked about her mother passing when she was just 12, and how her brother ran the farm into the ground. Declan found himself sharing things he never planned to, about the one and watching his friend Thomas die. "I always figured I was better off alone," he admitted one night, as the fire crackled. "But I reckon I was just scared of losing somebody else I cared about." "I get that," Amelia said, her voice soft as she darned one of his socks. "After I lost my home, I thought it was safer to keep folks at a distance. But that's not living, is it?" "No, ma'am, it sure isn't," he said, watching her hands work. "Is that why you came out here, to start living again?" "Mostly," she said, looking right at him. "I wanted to build something real, something that was mine." "That makes perfect sense," he nodded. "Now, what about you, Declan? Why did you really send for a bride?" He took a long breath, deciding she deserved the whole truth. I was lonely, a deep down, soul-aching lonely. I was afraid if I spent one more winter by myself, I'd forget how to be a person. I just needed a reason, his voice cracked, a reason to come home at night. Amelia put down her sewing and knelt by his chair, taking his big calloused hand in hers. The simple touch felt like a lightning strike. "You're not trapped, Declan," she said, "and you are not alone. We're building something here. It matters." "Amelia," he started to say, feeling something powerful shift between them. But she just stood up and went back to her chair. "It's getting late. We should turn in." He wanted to stop her, to ask her if this distance between them was tearing her apart too. Place I was stuck. Amelia set her sewing down and went to his chair by the fire, kneeling beside him. She took his hand in both of hers, a gesture so tender it made Declan's throat catch. "You're not stuck," she said, her voice firm. "And you're not alone. We're building something here, Declan. It may not be what we planned, but it's real. We matter." "Amelia," he started, unsure what to say. He just knew something big was changing between them, and there was no going back. But she stood up, went back to her chair, and picked up her sewing like nothing had happened. "It's getting late," she said. "We ought to bank the fire and turn in." He wanted to stop her, to pull her back. He needed to ask if this careful distance between them was hurting her as much as it was hurting him. He wanted to say more, but just gave a nod. "You're right, it's going to be a long one." Later that night in the dark, Declan finally admitted the truth to himself. He was plain and simple falling in love with his wife. It was not a young man's fire. It was quieter, a feeling that snuck up on him in the small moments, like her laugh. He saw it in the smart, capable way her hands worked, in the fire in her eyes. He saw it when they talked ranch business, and in her kindness to every animal. He was falling hard for Amelia Ward, and he had no idea if she felt anything back, or if she was just making the best of a deal they had made. January came and the cold bit down hard. The cattle stayed close. He and Amelia broke ice on the water troughs and hauled hay together. It was tough work, but they made it bearable for each other. Hope was growing fast. She was turning into a fine-looking horse with her own special spirit. Amelia worked with the filly every day, gentle and steady, teaching her to trust. Watching them, Declan knew how wrong he had been to ever doubt her. They found a natural rhythm. He did the heavy work, and Amelia handled the rest. She managed the house and had a real gift with the horses. He was stronger, but she was a better cook, and they just fit. Together they were a team that just worked, like they could read each other's minds. But underneath all that smooth work, something else was building up. Declan felt it when their hands brushed or when he'd catch her looking at him. The way she said his name could make his heart beat a little faster. They were circling something important, both of them knowing it, but neither one talking. The storm that changed it all hit in mid-January, coming out of a clear blue sky. It rolled in so fast that it caught even Declan by surprise. One minute they were working in the barn, the next the whole sky had turned gray. "That does not look good," Amelia said, her voice tight with worry. "It is not," Declan agreed, his eyes on the clouds. "We need to get the animals secured. Right now." They moved fast, penning up the chickens and the pigs. They drove the cattle to a pasture where the trees would give them some cover. All the horses were in the barn already, except for three, Juniper, Hope, and his own horse, Best. Gelding, who were all in the far corral when the weather turned. "I'll get them," Declan said, already moving. "No, you get inside," Amelia told him. "Get that fire built up. This storm looks real bad." She didn't argue further, just ran for the cabin, while Declan headed out into the blizzard. By the time he reached the corral, the first snowflakes were already falling hard and fast. These weren't gentle flakes, but hard pellets of ice driven by a howling wind. The horses were nervous. He got halters on Juniper and the gelding, but young Hope was just terrified. She backed away from him, her eyes rolling white with fear. "Easy, girl," Declan said gently. "Let me get this on you, and we will get you somewhere safe and warm." But Hope wheeled and bolted through the open gate, heading right for the open pasture. In a storm like this, a young horse out on the range could be gone in a matter of hours. Declan didn't even think. He tied the other two to the fence and took off after Hope on foot. He was running through snow so thick the wind just stole the breath from his lungs. He could barely see 10 feet in front of him, just the dark shape of that little filly. He pushed on, calling her name, trying to turn her back toward the barn. After what felt like hours, his body numb and burning from the cold, he finally got ahead of her. He managed to grab her halter, his fingers clumsy and frozen. "Gotcha," he gasped. He tied on a lead rope from his pocket. "Come on, little lady. Let's get you home." But when he turned to lead her back, the ranch was gone, vanished in a wall of white. The wind was screaming so loud, it was all he could hear. He was completely turned around. He knew that even seasoned frontiersmen had gotten lost and died just yards from their own cabins. Declan started walking anyway, leading hope and keeping the wind on his right. He figured that was the right way to go. But soon he couldn't feel his feet or his hands. The cold was seeping into his bones, making his thoughts all slow and fuzzy. He should have hit the barn by now. Unless he was walking in the wrong direction. Fear, as sharp as a knife, cut right through the fog in his mind. He could die out here, freeze to death in his own pasture over one foolish, panicked horse. And Amelia, she would be a widow, left to run this whole place by herself. The thought was just unbearable. So he kept walking, one foot in front of the other. Hope followed behind him, quiet as could be, like she finally understood the danger. Declan's legs felt heavy as lead. He was so tired, so bone-weary tired. It would be so much easier to just stop. Moment, to just rest. Then a voice cut through the howling wind. "Declan, where are you?" It was Amelia. His own voice was just a whisper. "Amelia, go back inside." But a shape appeared in the whiteout. It was Amelia in his big coat, with a rope tied around her. She was following that rope like a lifeline. "Thank the Lord," she gasped when she reached him. "I tied it to the porch," she explained. "Come on now," he protested. "You shouldn't have." "And you are lost, you stubborn fool," she said. "We're both about to freeze. Let's go." She grabbed Hope's lead rope and Declan's arm. Together they followed the rope back into the blizzard. That rope felt a mile long. Declan stumbled twice, nearly going down for good, but Amelia held him up with a strength he never knew she had. Finally, the dark shape of the cabin appeared. They stumbled through the door into the blessed warmth. Amelia slammed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. Hope the cow stood there, dripping on the floor, looking completely bewildered. Declan tried to get to the fire, but his legs gave out and he collapsed. "Oh, no, you don't," Amelia said sharply. "Don't you dare just sit there. You are soaked and half frozen. We have to get you warm." She was right. He was shaking so violently his teeth chattered, and he could not even speak. She somehow got him on his feet and over to the fireplace. She worked fast, pulling off his wet coat and boots, her own fingers surely just as cold as his. "You need dry clothes and blankets," she said. "I will handle Hope. You will handle not dying on me." She pushed him toward the bedroom. "Go on now." He made it to the bedroom and got into dry, long underwear, but that was all he could manage. His hands were shaking too badly. He was just sitting on the bed when Amelia came in, carrying a mountain of quilts and hot water bottles. She looked serious. "In bed." Why up I day?" "You in that bed," she ordered. "Now, my daddy treated this twice. He always said that first hour is the most important one. So get in, or I'll put you in." He did as he was told. She piled quilts on him, then tucked hot water bottles all around his body. Then she climbed right into bed beside him, still in her clothes, and wrapped her arms around him tight. "Body heat," she said, plain and simple. "It is the fastest way. Now be quiet and try to stop shaking." But he couldn't. His whole body shivered uncontrollably. Amelia just held him through it all. She rubbed his back and arms, her voice steady and calm. She told him about Hope standing in the front room and about how she'd made that lifeline with the rope. She held him close, remembering that's how folks survive a whiteout. Slowly, warmth started to seep back into him. His shaking finally eased. Feeling returned to his hands and feet with a painful pins and needles sting. All the while, Amelia's arms were a strong, steady anchor. "You scared me half to death," she finally said. Her voice was trembling. "When that storm hit and you still weren't back, I thought the worst." I thought I'd lost you, she choked out. That I'd find you frozen out there in the morning. And I couldn't bear it. I'm just so sorry. He turned to face her, seeing the tears on her cheeks. That sight just broke his heart. Amelia, I'm the one who's sorry. I wasn't thinking. I just knew Hope was in trouble, and She cut him off. You almost died, Declan. You almost died for a horse. I know she's important, but you matter more, not just to the ranch. She struggled for the words. You matter to me, more than I ever planned on. The thought of this place without you. That's when he kissed her. He didn't think, he just did it. He leaned in and pressed his half-frozen lips to hers, his hand cupping her cheek. He tasted the salt from her tears and felt her gasp. For a terrible second, she went completely still, and he thought he'd made a huge mistake. But then she was kissing him back, her arms wrapping tight around his neck. Her kiss was hungry and desperate, matching his own. All the polite distance between them just melted away. When they pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Amelia's eyes were wide. I'm sorry, Declan said, his voice raspy. I shouldn't have done that. Do you want me here? She asked, her voice fierce. And I don't mean as a housekeeper or a wife on paper. Do you actually want me, Declan? I have to know if this is real or if I'm just convenient. He almost laughed at that. Convenient, darling, there ain't nothing convenient about you. You're stubborn and way too smart, and you scare me most days because I don't know what you're thinking, or if I'm doing any of this right, or if you could ever actually want me. The truth came out raw and painful. I look at you and I see a woman who's too good, too fine for a man like me. You could have had anyone, but you got stuck with me because you needed an escape. I know we said this was just a practical arrangement, but Amelia, I just can't pretend anymore. His voice cracked. I can't act like I don't care, when all I really want is... What? She whispered. What do you want? You, he said, plain and simple. All of you. I want this to be real. I want us to be real. But I won't ever push you. I need to know if that's what you want too. Amelia was quiet for a long time, just looking right into his soul. Then she answered softly. Quietly, you never did ask who I am. You took one look and figured you had me all sized up. Too pretty and too fancy for this life. But you never bothered to ask what I was hoping for when I answered your letter. Her hand rose to gently cup his face. I wanted this, Declan. I was looking for a partner, not a prize to be owned. Someone who would see my strength as a blessing, not a threat. Someone who'd let me be myself, even if I am more at home in a barn than a sitting room. I wanted a man who was honest and a chance to build a life that truly mattered. Her eyes locked with his. I wanted you, Declan Ward. Maybe not right at first, but with every single day we've worked side by side. With every chore we've shared, building this place together. I have wanted you more and more. And yes, that thought scares me to death. I held back because I was afraid you only saw me as a convenience. Just a quick fix for your loneliness. But the plain truth is, I have been falling in love with you. The words tumbled out, as if she had to say them now or never. I am not sure exactly when it happened. Maybe when you let me name our sweet calf, Hope. Or maybe it was when you showed me where your family rests. But somewhere along the way, our little arrangement stopped being a business deal for me. It became everything. Declan felt his heart swell inside his chest, making it hard to take a breath. Amelia, he whispered. Tears started to fall down her cheeks again. You nearly died out there today. And I realized if I lost you before I was brave enough to tell you how I felt, I would never forgive myself. So yes, Declan, I want you. I want us. I want this marriage to be real and messy and wonderful. If you can forgive me for being too scared to say it, and if you will still have me. He kissed her again. It was a deep kiss, full of all the relief and joy and love he could not put into words. He was a man who had been lonely for so long, and somehow he had found the one person who truly saw him. She kissed him back with just as much passion, her hands tangling in his hair, her body pressing close. When they finally came up for air, both of them breathless, Declan spoke. I love you. I should have told you that weeks ago. I love you, Amelia. The real you. Stubborn and skilled and so very kind. I love that little tune you hum when you work and the way your eyes light up when Hope does something funny. I love that you stood your ground with me from the very start. I love you, and I am so sorry. I am sorry it took me nearly dying to finally find the nerve to say it. The storm was not the real danger, Amelia said, her own words coming back to him. The real danger was me being too afraid to love you. But I am not afraid anymore. She gave a small smile through her tears. Well, I am afraid, but I am doing it anyway. He kissed her again, and this time she pulled the heavy quilts away, wanting to be closer. His cold hands helped her until there was nothing between them but skin and warmth. Are you warm enough now? Are you warm enough? Amelia whispered. Because I surely am. He pulled her in tight, just marveling that she was real and that she was choosing him. Outside, a fierce blizzard buried the ranch deep in snow. But inside that little cabin, two strangers were finding a home in each other. This was not some fancy romance from a book. It was real and honest. They were just two people learning to trust, building something true. Later, laying tangled in the quilts, Amelia drew patterns on his chest. We should probably check on Hope and see if the cabin is still standing, she said. In a little bit. He held her tighter, not ready to let the moment go. My only regret is that we waited so long to get here. She looked up at him, smiling. Then let's not waste another minute. No more being formal, just us, building this life. Can you do that? I can do that, he said, and gave her a kiss to seal the deal. When they finally got up, they found Hope sleeping soundly by the fire. The storm was still howling, but inside the cabin felt safe and warm. For the first time, Declan felt he was truly home. The next 3 days, they were snowed in tight, and in those days, they found more laughter and tenderness than they ever expected. They talked for hours about their pasts and their plans for the ranch. Declan told her things about the war he had never told a single soul. Amelia told him about losing her family's farm and her lonely years in Boston. You know, I used to dream about horses, she said one night while they cooked. They moved around the small kitchen together, already like a team. Stuck in Boston, I dream of the smell of hay and working with my hands. I dreamed of being useful, not just sitting there looking pretty in a tight dress. I thought I'd lost that dream for good. Well, you do not have to give up anything here, Declan told her. You can have all the hard work and all the horses you could ever want. She smiled at him. I know. That is why this feels like coming home. On the fourth morning, a deep silence woke them. The storm was over. The world outside was brand new, covered in a quiet blanket of snow. The next morning, the sky was a brilliant blue. They spent the day digging out and checking on the animals, making sure the storm hadn't done too much damage. Everything had made it through, even little Hope. She was prancing in the snow, none the worse for her adventure inside the main room. She acted like the whole blizzard was just for her own entertainment. That afternoon, they stood on the porch, looking at the work ahead. Amelia leaned against Declan. You reckon the road to town is clear yet? She asked. Probably not for a week or so. Why? I was just thinking we should let folks know we're okay. They'll figure we're fine, he said. Everyone out here knows how to handle a bad winter. Still, she looked up at him with warm eyes. I'd like them to know we're more than just surviving. We're happy, Declan finished for her. Yes, we're happy. Is that allowed? He kissed the top of her head. He couldn't believe this amazing woman had chosen him. It's more than allowed, he said softly. We've earned it. Standing on the porch of the ranch his father built, watching the sunset over the snowy mountains, he felt his wife warm against him. With their future stretching out before them, Declan Ward finally understood. He understood what his mother tried to tell him before she passed. Love doesn't make a man weak. Love is what makes getting through the hard times worth it. Love is what turns a house into a home. Love turns being lonely into being a team, and it turns fear into courage. It makes just existing into a life truly worth living. He thought he was broken for good after 3 years alone. He thought he couldn't connect with anyone ever again. He was wrong. He was just waiting for the right person. Amelia showed him that opening his heart again wasn't a weakness. It was the bravest thing a man could ever do. The very next morning, Declan woke up and Amelia's side of the bed was cold and empty. For a heartbeat, pure panic seized him. He thought she'd changed her mind and left. But then he heard her soft voice from the main room. He got dressed quick and went to find her. She was sitting by the fire, and Hope the foal had her head right in her lap. That clever little horse had learned to open the cabin door and decided she wanted morning visits. Amelia was stroking Hope's face, talking softly to her. The sight of his wife and the foal in the morning light made Declan's chest feel full of a powerful emotion. "She's going to be completely spoiled," he said, smiling from the doorway. Amelia looked up. "She already is," she said, "but she's earned it. You survived a blizzard, sweet girl." "You're not the only one who came out of it more beautiful than before," Declan said, walking over. He bent down and gave Amelia a real kiss, and he felt her smile against his. "You flatter me. Now help me get this horse out of the house before she decides to make a mess on our rug." They got Hope back to the barn, where her mama Juniper greeted her with a happy nicker. The other horses were fine, and the cattle had weathered the storm without a problem. Everything was as it should be, but now the world felt different, somehow brighter. The days that followed were some of the happiest Declan had ever known in his life. It was not because of anything big, but all the small moments that made their life together. Amelia humming while she kneaded dough or wrapping her arms around his waist. Their long talks at supper and the nights spent tangled together, learning each other's hearts. They properly moved Declan's things into the bedroom, making it truly theirs. Amelia even hung curtains she'd sewn from fabric she found in his mother's old trunk. Those small touches made the cabin feel more like a real home, cared for and loved. She reorganized the kitchen, and Declan found he did not mind one bit. He liked watching her make the place her own. "I have been thinking about the garden," she said. They were sitting by the fire, her feet in his lap while he rubbed her cold toes. "Not just bigger," she said, "but planned out properly." She imagined 3 big sections, for vegetables, for herbs, and for medicinal plants. She figured with the right setup, they could make the growing season last much longer. "That is a big plan," Declan said, smiling, "but a good one. We can do it." "I made a list," she said, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. It had everything on it, from the seeds they would need to a timeline for planting. He took the list from her, impressed by how thorough she was. "This is real good. We'll need to go to town once the roads clear up to get all this." "How long do you reckon that will be?" she asked him. "Another week, maybe 2, he said. "We are not in any big hurry, are we?" Amelia got quiet for a moment, and her expression was hard for him to read. "No," she said finally. "No hurry. I just want people to see us as really married." "You want them to know that we are happy together," he realized. "I want everyone to know," she said with a fire in her voice that surprised him. "I want the gossips in town to see that I am not going anywhere." She stopped, seeming a little embarrassed. "What is it you want, love?" he asked softly. "I want them to see us the way I see us," she said. "As a real family. A real marriage, not some arrangement folks are just waiting to see crumble." Declan pulled her onto his lap, holding her tight. "Anyone who thinks this will fail just doesn't know you. They don't know how strong you are. You have already proven yourself 10 times over, Amelia." "I know, but I want their approval anyway." She sighed against his chest. "Is that silly?" "No, that's just human," he said, kissing her head. "And when we go to town, we will show them." Their chance came sooner than they figured. 3 days later, young Billy Patterson rode up from town. Billy worked at the general store, making deliveries and carrying news when the roads were clear. He brought supplies they had ordered and checked on all the families living so far out. "Mrs. Whitmore is beside herself, wanting to know how the new Mrs. Ward handled the blizzard," Billy said. While Amelia poured him coffee, he added, "Half the town's taken bets on it. They're wondering if you made it, or if you'd be on the next stagecoach back east come springtime." "Well, you can tell them she saved my life during that storm," Declan said, his voice flat. "And tell Mrs. Whitmore if she wants to gossip, she can come out here and do it to our faces." "You mean it about her saving your life?" Billy's eyes were wide. Declan explained about the whiteout. "Would have frozen solid if Amelia hadn't tied a rope lifeline and come out there to get me. She has more frontier sense than most men I know." Billy looked at Amelia with brand new respect. Well, I'll be. Ma'am, that's really something. Just wait till I tell everyone in town about this. After Billy left, Amelia raised an eyebrow. You didn't need to brag on me like that. It wasn't bragging, just the plain truth, he said, pulling her close. Let him talk about you, but let him be right. You are impossible. She smiled and kissed him. My poor judgment aside, I better start dinner. And you have that fence to check before dark. He nodded. I do. But he did not let her go right away. He just held her for a moment, amazed at how completely she had become a part of his world. Amelia, thank you for coming here, for staying, for loving me when I gave you every reason not to. Declan Ward, you gave me every reason to stay from the moment I got here, she said softly. You just did not see it. She touched his face. Now go check that fence. Supper will be ready. Out on the fence line, Declan's thoughts drifted to the future. Spring was just around the corner. It would bring calving season, a bigger garden for Amelia, and training Hope to a saddle. Summer meant long, hot days in the hayfields and getting everything ready for the next winter. It was the rhythm of ranch life, a cycle of hard work that gave meaning to every single day. Before Amelia, it all felt like a heavy duty. Now he saw it as building a life, together. It was a life he was building with someone he loved, and that made all the difference in the world. He was mending the last bit of fence when he spotted two riders coming up the trail. It was Reverend Mitchell and, to his surprise, Doc Henderson. Afternoon, Declan, the Reverend called out. Hope we're not bothering you. Not at all, Reverend. What brings you folks all the way out here? Well, Doc Henderson started, young Billy Patterson came to town with a heck of a story. The doc, a man in his 50s with sharp eyes, continued. Said your wife saved you from that blizzard. I wanted to check on you, make sure you didn't have any lingering trouble from the cold. I'm doing just fine, Doc. Amelia took mighty good care of me. Still, I'd like to check you over and meet this remarkable woman of yours. Declan felt a swell of pride as they walked to the cabin. Through the window, he could see Amelia moving about the kitchen with such easy grace. This was his wife, and he wanted these men to see how truly special she was. Amelia welcomed them in, offering coffee and fresh baking like she'd been expecting company all along. While the doc checked Declan over, the Reverend spoke with Amelia. I'll be honest, Mrs. Ward, the Reverend said gently. Folks were a little worried. They wondered if a lady from your background could handle a life out here on the frontier. I appreciate that, Reverend, Amelia said, her voice kind but firm. But I'm no delicate flower. I grew up working my father's horse farm. I can mend a fence and shoot straight. My nice dresses don't make me any less capable. Doc Henderson let out a hearty laugh. I like her, Declan. She's got some real grit. I know, Declan said, smiling right at Amelia. Took me a few days to see it myself. Amelia raised an eyebrow. A few days? I seem to remember you had your doubts from the start. I did, Declan admitted, and I was a fool for it. Yes, you were, she said, but her eyes were full of warmth, taking any sting from the words. Reverend Mitchell watched them, a happy smile on his face. It does my heart good to see you two, he said. I worried your marriage was just a practical arrangement, but I can see now that it's turned into something much more. I'm so very glad to have been wrong about that. We just made a smart arrangement, Amelia said, and let it turn into something more. The Reverend agreed, that is not a shameful thing. That is wisdom right there. Love that is chosen on purpose. Well, that is a special kind of love. After their company left, promising to tell everyone the Wards were well, Amelia relaxed. She leaned on Declan. That was nice of them. Doc Henderson just wanted to know I was okay. And the Reverend wanted to be sure we were okay, she said, looking up at him. Are we okay, she asked. He kissed her forehead. We are better than okay. We are building something real, and it is only going to get better. I promise. February brought more snow, and they settled into a deep winter routine together. They kept the animals fed and the gear ready, always planning for the springtime. At night, they sat together. Amelia started tiny seeds on the windowsill. She coaxed the first little shoots of tomatoes to life. Declan fixed harnesses and sharpened tools. He was getting everything ready for the busy season that was coming up. In the evenings, they talked. She told him about books, and he shared things he never told anyone. He spoke of his fears about the ranch and his guilt over his brother Thomas. He marveled at how he had found her when he was not even looking. Amelia looked up from her mending. You know what I love? This quiet. My aunt's house in Boston was always so loud, with people everywhere. Everyone had an opinion on what I should be. But this, she said, looking around the cabin, this quiet is where we can just be ourselves. It is so peaceful here. You do not miss all that noise in society, even a little bit, she asked. She set down her sewing and came to sit on his lap, a habit they both enjoyed. Back there, I missed working with my hands. I missed doing something that mattered. Out here, everything you do makes a difference. If I do not tend the chickens, we get no eggs. It is real and it feels good, not like all that small talk in a fancy parlor. I am so glad, Declan said, holding her close. Glad you are happy right here. My only regret, she said softly, is that we were so careful at the start. We could have had this sooner if we had just been a little bit braver. Or maybe, he said, we needed that time to learn to trust each other. She smiled at him. When did you get so thoughtful, Mr. Ward? He teased back. Ward, she just laughed and kissed him, the mending completely forgotten. By mid-February, the weather was finally clear enough for the trip to Birch Creek. They loaded their wagon with eggs, fresh butter, and a few pelts to trade. Amelia put on one of her nicer dresses, something respectable and sturdy. You don't have to get all gussied up for town, you know, Declan said softly. I know, she said, looking in the mirror. This is not for them, it's for me. I want us to look like a proper couple when we walk in there together. Darling, they'd see that if you were wearing a flour sack, but he understood. This was their first time in town as husband and wife, a big deal. She wanted to show that she belonged, that she had chosen this life. The ride was cold but mighty beautiful, with snow shining under a blue sky nearby. They talked about seeds they needed to order and other supplies for the ranch. They even talked about maybe buying a milk cow from one of the neighbors. That easy, comfortable conversation warmed Declan's heart more than any fire. Birch Creek was bustling with folks who were finally free of the snow. When Declan and Amelia walked into the crowded general store, the talking stopped. Mrs. Whitmore was there, looking Amelia up and down. Well now, Mrs. Ward, what a surprise. Were you expecting me to not survive the blizzard? Amelia's voice was pleasant, but there was pure steel underneath. I assure you, Mrs. Whitmore, I am quite well. In fact, the ranch is doing just fine, and my husband and I are very happy. I can see that, Mrs. Whitmore said, and for once she sounded genuine. You both look good. I am better than I have been in years, Declan said, putting a proud arm around Amelia. Turns out having a real partner makes all the difference in the world. They spent the next hour trading their goods and ordering what they needed. People came over to say hello, and more than one said how well-suited they seemed. Doc Henderson stopped by while they were finishing up their seed order. How are those fingers healing up, Declan? Good as new, Doc, all thanks to Amelia. The doctor looked directly at Amelia. It takes a special person to stay calm like that. You did real good, Mrs. Ward. Not many would have thought to rig up that lifeline. I just did what needed doing, Amelia said humbly. No, ma'am, he replied. Most people just panic. You kept a cool head and saved my life. After they loaded up the wagon, Declan noticed Amelia was awful quiet on the drive home. What's on your mind, he finally asked her. Just how different things are out here, she said. In Boston, a trip to town was a big show. Everyone there judged you by your fancy clothes and family name. But here, folks look at what you are made of. And you know, I think I prefer it. I'd rather be known for what I can do, not who my daddy was. You'd be impressive no matter where you were, Declan said softly. But I know what you mean. Out here, it matters if you are a good neighbor. It matters if your word is your bond. And you have proven you are tough enough for this life, Amelia. You saved me today. You work harder than any man I have ever hired, and you never complain. If that is not proof of your strength, I do not know what is. She was quiet for a bit, then said, Thank you for seeing the good in me. Always, he said. I will always believe in you. When they saw the cabin, Amelia smiled. It is funny how a place can feel like home so fast. I have only been here 3 months, but seeing that cabin feels like coming home. That is because it is our home. Declan said, helping her down from the wagon. For both of us. Later that night, after the chores were done, they sat by the fire. Amelia looked at him seriously and said, I need to tell you something. The way she said it made Declan put down his work and give her his full attention. What is it? I am late, she said. My monthly time. I am 2 weeks late. And with the way I have been feeling sick in the mornings, I think I might be expecting a child. Declan felt a wave of pure joy, followed by a cold shot of fear. Having a baby out here was a dangerous business. So many things could go wrong. How do you feel about it? He asked. Terrified, she admitted, and so very happy too. I know the dangers, Declan. I know it is a risk, but my heart, but my ma. Her hand rested on her belly. I want this baby. I want to build a family with you. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. We will get through this. Together. We will tell Doc Henderson and make sure he is here for you. We will be ready. You will be fine, he promised. I will try my best, she laughed, a little shaky. But I hear pregnant women can be a handful. I do not care one bit, he said, kissing her forehead. You can be whatever you need to be. Just be careful, please, his voice caught in his throat. I will. I promise, she whispered back. They sat together long into the night, just talking about the future. They planned where to put a nursery and how to run the ranch with a baby on the way. It was exciting and a little bit scary all at once. Amelia rested her head on his shoulder. When I first came here, I thought I just wanted an escape. But you gave me a real home, a family, and a future I never dreamed of. You did the exact same for me, Declan said softly. I was just getting by before you. You changed everything. No, we changed each other, she corrected him gently. I reckon that's just what love does. It makes you a whole lot braver. He let out a soft chuckle. Well, listen to the wise Mrs. Ward. She smiled against his shoulder. That's what happens when you marry a good, brave man. March came, and with it, the first real hints of spring. The snow started to melt as Doc Henderson made his way out to the ranch. He confirmed the pregnancy and told them Amelia was as healthy and strong as a horse. Their baby was due to arrive in early September, just before the chill of fall set in. With that news, they threw themselves into getting everything ready. They built new garden frames and got all their seeds planted for the summer. Then came the long nights of calving season. It was hard work, but they had a good year. All the while, their little foal, Hope, was growing up beautifully. Declan started her training, working with her on leading and ground manners. Amelia found so much joy in watching the two of them work together. She would just sit on the top rail of the corral fence and smile. She's going to be something truly special, Amelia said one afternoon. Look at her move. She'll be the start of a whole new bloodline for this ranch. For our ranch, Declan corrected her. This place is yours as much as it is mine. It's all ours together, she beamed. I surely do like the sound of that. The weeks passed by in a happy blur of hard work and growing excitement. As Amelia's belly began to grow, Declan found he could not stop watching her. He was amazed and terrified, and just so full of love for her and their child. Come April, after the last snow was gone and the garden was planted, life on the ranch found its easy rhythm. Declan looked around, a lump of emotion forming in his throat. This ranch, once just an obligation to his family, had finally become something more. It had become a home, not because of the land, but because of the life he and Amelia were building, a love that made every moment feel precious. One evening on the porch, watching a golden sunset, Amelia asked, Do you remember that first day? You looked at me like a puzzle you couldn't solve. Declan chuckled. I thought you were too fine, too fancy for a place like this. And now I know, he said, you are just right, for this place and for me. He took her hand in his. I love you, Amelia Ward, more than I ever knew I could. I love you too, she said back. I am so grateful we were both brave enough to make this real. He asked her softly, You have no regrets? My only regret is that we waited so long to say how we felt. She smiled. But now we have years and years, he agreed, and he kissed her. The love they found had transformed them from two lonely souls into a team that had weathered every kind of storm together. They had saved each other in more ways than one, As spring promised new life, they faced the future not as strangers, but as a husband and wife bound by a powerful love. And then, summer arrived in a blaze. The hot Montana sun made that winter blizzard feel like a faraway dream. Amelia's pregnancy was going along just fine despite the heat. By July, her belly was round, and she moved with a special kind of care. And Declan, bless his heart, had become almost comically protective. He was always gay, always hovering, trying to keep her from lifting a single finger. It drove Amelia a little bit crazy, but in a secret way, she was pleased. "Declan Ward, I am pregnant, not made of glass," she said one afternoon when he grabbed her laundry basket. "Women have been having babies and doing work since the dawn of time. Not my wife carrying my baby," he said, holding the basket firm. "Your job is to supervise." "You'll hang it all wrong," she teased. "Then you can tell me all about it from a comfy chair in the shade." He led her to a chair he'd set up just for her. "Please, Amelia, just let me do this. Just let me handle this." Something in his voice made her just sit back and watch him. He fumbled with the laundry, getting it all wrinkled and crooked, and her heart just about burst. He had been so guarded, and now he was trying so hard to show her exactly how much he cared. Their little garden was thriving, doing better than Amelia had ever dreamed it would. Fat red tomatoes hung heavy on the vines, and beans climbed up the trellises Declan built. They ate fresh from the garden every night, and Amelia spent her mornings putting up preserves for the winter. The root cellar was filling up with jars of pickles and jams. "We're going to eat like kings this winter," she said with a proud smile. "And next summer I want to plant even more. Maybe some melons and squash. I have been reading about some new ways to get a bigger harvest." "Whatever you want, darling," Declan said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. He rested his hands on her round belly. "I'm more worried about next month than next summer. Doc Henderson said he'd come stay for the last 2 weeks to make sure he is here when the time comes." Amelia leaned back against him as the baby kicked his hand. "Feel that?" "That is a strong one," Declan said, his voice full of wonder. Every kick was a little miracle to him. Boy or girl, it does not matter one bit, as long as you are both healthy. But Amelia could hear the worry in his voice. It was a fear they both shared as the day got closer. They did not talk about it much, but they both knew how dangerous childbirth could be. All the love in the world could not promise that everything would turn out all right. "I am strong," Amelia said quietly, turning to face him. "You know I am. I survived Boston, and I survived that hard winter. I will survive this too. I have to." "Promise me," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Promise me you will fight." "I promise," she vowed with all her heart. "I'm not going anywhere, Declan. You are stuck with me for the next 50 years at least." He smiled. 50 years is not nearly enough. He kissed her then, a deep kiss full of all the words he just could not say. And she kissed him right back, pouring all her love and hope into it. They had to get through this. One hot day in August, a wagon pulled up. Declan came out of the barn to see who it could be. A well-dressed older woman was climbing down with help from her driver. For a moment, Declan did not recognize her. Then the woman took off her bonnet. Amelia came out of the cabin and let out a gasp. "Aunt Margaret?" Declan realized who it was. The woman turned to Amelia, looking both relieved and worried. "Amelia, thank goodness. When I got your letter and came as fast as I could." "What letter?" Declan asked, looking at his wife. Amelia's face turned pale as a sheet. "I wrote her 2 months ago just to say I was happy." "Happy? Child, I have been worried sick since the day you ran off. I knew I was wrong," her voice cracked. "I tried my best to find you, but you covered your tracks so well, I had to hire a private investigator." "You hired someone?" Amelia asked, her hand moving to her belly. "Why are you here? To take me back?" "No," the older woman's face crumpled. "No, dear girl, I am here to beg for your forgiveness for what I said. I was wrong to try and force you into that miserable marriage. I was wrong about it all." The air was heavy for a moment. Then Declan stepped forward, extending his hand. "Ma'am, I am Declan Ward, Amelia's husband. Would you like to come inside? It is far too hot to be having this talk out in the sun." Margaret took his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Ward. I would appreciate that." Inside, over cool water, Margaret told them her side of the story. She said her pride got in the way of her taking back her harsh words. The investigator she hired had finally found Amelia through the agency. He followed the trail all the way to the Ward Ranch. When your letter arrived, I did not believe you were really happy, Margaret said. I thought you were just being brave about a bad situation. So I came to rescue you, she said, looking around the cozy cabin. But I see now that you are truly well. I am, Amelia said quietly. I am happy. This life, this man, this is everything I ever needed. I can see that, Margaret said, her eyes on Declan's hand covering Amelia's. Mr. Ward, I have to tell you, I came here ready to dislike you. I pictured some rough man who had taken advantage of my niece. Ma'am, with all due respect, that is what I am, Declan said evenly. But I love your niece. I love her spirit and her courage. I love the life we are building, and I promise you this. I will spend the rest of my days making sure she never regrets her choice. Margaret gave him a real smile. I believe you will, Mr. Ward. You are exactly what she needed, someone to hold her back, but an equal partner who saw her for who she was. I do, Declan said. Was so wish for him. More than words can say. What was meant to be a quick trip for Margaret stretched into 3 whole days. She took a room in Birch Creek but spent all her time out at the ranch. Declan watched as the aunt and niece started to mend fences. It was not easy, mind you. There were some hard talks and more than a few tears shed between them. But soon old memories and laughter started to heal those old wounds. To his surprise, Margaret even took a real interest in the ranch. She confessed that while she lived in Boston, she was actually born on a farm. She walked through Amelia's garden, truly admiring all the hard work that went into it. Your mother would be mighty proud, Margaret told Amelia, seeing her tend to the tomato plants. She always said you had her green thumb. She had a gift for making things grow, just like you. I suppose I'd forgotten what really matters in this life. What changed, Amelia asked her. Why did you really come all this way? Margaret was quiet for a spell, her hand resting on a vine. When you left, I told myself you would come crawling back home inside of a month. But you did not. The weeks went by, and I started having these terrible dreams that you were in trouble, that you needed me, but I was not there. I realized I was doing the same thing to you that was done to me. I was trying to force you into a life I thought was safe, instead of a life that would make you happy. I could not bear the thought of that coming between us for good. You are not going to, Amelia said. We all do, honey, Margaret replied softly. The only question is if we make things right with the people we love before our time comes. She turned right to Amelia. I want to make peace with you. I want to be in your life, if you will have me. I want to know this child and support you, even if I do not understand all your choices. Amelia's eyes started to well up with tears. I want that too. I have missed you, Aunt Margaret. Even when I was mad, I missed you. They held each other in a tight embrace, both of them crying. Declan quietly slipped away, a lump forming in his own throat. He never got the chance to make things right with his own family before they passed on. Watching them find their way back to one another felt like seeing something truly special. That evening, the whole community gathered for supper, from the Reverend to Doc Henderson. And that is when Margaret Cross made an announcement that left everyone speechless. I have decided to stay, she told the crowded room. Not here at the ranch, of course. I spoke with Mr. Hutchkins at the store, and there is a small house for sale in Birch Creek. I am going to buy it and make Montana my home. Aunt Margaret, you cannot be serious, Amelia gasped. Concern. But what about Boston? Your home, your friends? My life is right here with my family. Margaret replied, her voice firm. And y'all are the only family I have left. I am 62 years old, Amelia. I have enough to live well anywhere I please. And I please to live right here near the folks I love most. This frontier won't be nearly as lonely as that big old empty house back in Boston. Margaret smiled. Besides, I'm a farm girl at heart, remember? I might be a little out of practice, but I can still tell a hoe from a spade. I reckon I can even help with that big garden you're planning for next year. Amelia looked over at Declan, who just squeezed her hand. It's up to you, darling, but I think having family close would be a good thing. Especially with the little one coming, Margaret added with a knowing nod. Doc Henderson tells me that baby is due in early September. I aim to be right here for that, Amelia. So, that settled it. Margaret was staying. She would make her new home in Birch Creek. She was becoming a part of the small town that was already taking Amelia in as one of its own. The whole thing just felt right, like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place exactly as they were meant to. Those last weeks of August flew by in a flurry of getting everything ready. Doc Henderson showed up just as he promised, getting settled in and making himself useful around the ranch. Margaret came out from town most days, helping Amelia get the nursery just so. They made tiny clothes and blankets, and she shared old stories about Amelia's own mother. "Your mother had you during a powerful thunderstorm," Margaret said one afternoon. "The midwife was stuck because of flooding, so your father delivered you all by himself. Your mama always said you came into this world during a storm," she said, "because you were going to be a force of nature yourself." Margaret just smiled at her. "Well, you crossed this whole country, married a man you barely knew, and you're about to bring a new life into this world. I'd say your mother was right on the money." Then September rolled in, the weather cooled down, and Amelia's due date came and went without a peep from the baby. She was getting mighty frustrated that her body wasn't sticking to her careful schedule. "Babies come when they're good and ready," Doc Henderson said, trying to soothe her. "That's easy for you to say," Amelia grumbled back. "You're not the one who feels like you've swallowed a whole watermelon whole." Declan, bless his heart, was so nervous he started inventing chores just to stay busy. He was fixing hinges that weren't even broken and organizing tack that was already neat as a pin. He was driving poor Margaret to distraction, always asking if Amelia was feeling all right. "She's doing fine, Declan," Margaret said for what felt like the 100th time. "First babies just take their time." But Declan couldn't settle his mind. He was worried sick. He had worked so hard to keep Amelia safe for this very moment. Now he felt utterly helpless, just plain terrified something would go wrong. The labor pains began in the dark hours of September 7th. Amelia shook him awake and said calmly, "It's time. Go get the doc." Declan was already out the door before he was fully awake. He pounded on Doc Henderson's door, shouting, "Doc, it is time." The hours that came next were the longest of Declan's whole life. Hearing Amelia's cries from the other room was a special kind of torment. There was absolutely nothing he could do to ease her suffering. "This is how it is," Margaret told him, as he paced like a caged wolf. "Amelia is a strong woman. She is going to be all right." "You cannot know that for sure," Declan said with a rough voice. "She has Doc Henderson, and she has me. Now try to sit down, son." But he could not sit. He just paced and prayed to a God he wasn't sure was listening. He made a desperate deal in his head. "Just let her live. I can't do this life without her. Please just let her live." The sun came up, but the labor just kept on going. Doc Henderson came out once to say things were moving, just mighty slow. "Can I please see her?" Declan begged. "She does not want you to see her in pain," the doctor said gently. "We need to respect that." So Declan kept on waiting, his mind imagining the worst. Reverend Mitchell came by and sat in a corner, praying quietly. Mrs. Whitmore brought over a basket of food that nobody touched. All the while, the sounds from the bedroom told a real story. There were cries of pain, but also the calm voice of the doctor. He even heard Amelia's tired laughter at one point, a small ray of hope. Then, in the afternoon, a sharp cry echoed through the cabin. It was followed by a heavy silence that chilled Declan right to the bone. The door creaked open. Doc Henderson came home, his face looking as serious as a heart attack. He got straight to the point. "The baby is stuck," he said. "I have to go in, and it's risky. If I do not, we might lose both of them. You need to understand this, Declan. This is the moment that counts. Do whatever you have to do," Declan choked out. "Just save her, please. If you can only save one of them, you save Amelia. You promise me that." "I promise I will do everything I possibly can," the doctor said, which gave Declan a little comfort. "Margaret is in there with her. She is not by herself. Now I have to get back to it." The door shut. Declan just stood there, frozen. He felt a terror so strong it was hard for him to even draw a breath. This was the moment he had feared for months, the moment he could lose everything that ever mattered. Reverend Mitchell came and put a hand on his shoulder. "Have a little faith, son. Amelia is a strong woman. Sometimes all a man can do is trust in the good Lord's plan and the skill of good people. I do not know if I believe anymore, Declan said, his voice raspy. The Reverend just nodded. That is all right, son. He believes in you. Now all we can do is wait and pray. The minutes dragged on. Declan listened to every little sound coming from that bedroom, his heart pounding in his chest. He heard Amelia let out a scream so raw and real it almost brought him to his knees. A flurry of activity and hushed voices followed right after her cry. And then, a miracle happened. A new sound cut through the air. A baby's cry, faint but clear. That little one was alive. Declan's legs gave out from under him. The Reverend caught him and helped him into a chair. That baby's cry was the most beautiful music he had ever heard. It meant his child was safe in this world. But what about Amelia? The question burned in his mind. The door to the room stayed shut tight. He could hear the baby, but he could not hear his wife's voice at all. A whole new fear took hold. What if she was slipping away from him right now, while he just sat there completely helpless? Finally, the bedroom door creaked open. Margaret stood there, looking exhausted but full of pure joy. Declan, come on in here and meet your daughter. He was moving before he even thought about it. The room was dim and smelled of hard work and medicine, but he did not care about any of that, because lying there in the bed, propped up with pillows, was his Amelia. She looked pale and worn out, but she gave him the most beautiful smile he had ever seen, and in her arms was a tiny little bundle. We have a daughter, Amelia whispered, her voice weak but filled with so much love and wonder. Declan, come see her. He walked to the bed, his legs feeling like jelly. He looked down at the little baby girl in his wife's arms. She was so small, with a full head of dark hair. Her little eyes were closed, but her face was already so full of life and expression, still taking in her sudden arrival. She's perfect, Declan breathed out. Amelia, she's just perfect, his voice broke. And you, are you all right? Doc Henderson had said it was a tough one. It was, she admitted. I was scared a time or two, but the doc knew what he was doing, and Aunt Margaret wouldn't let me quit. We made it, Declan, the three of us. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, feeling so much love it made him shake. I was so scared when the doc said there were problems. When I heard you scream, I thought, I know, I'm sorry. She touched his face. But we're here now, we're safe. And we have this beautiful little girl to show for all our troubles, don't we? As if she understood, the baby opened her big blue eyes, already curious about this new world. She looked at her mama, then her daddy, and made a sweet, contented little noise. What are we going to name her? Declan asked, unable to tear his eyes away from his daughter. I was thinking, Amelia said softly, that her middle name should be Catherine, for my mother. But for her first name, I'd like to name her after your mother, if that's all right. What was her name? Sarah, Declan said, his throat tight with emotion. Sarah Catherine Ward, Amelia said, trying out the sound. What do you think, sweetheart? The baby let out a giant yawn, and both her parents laughed through happy tears. Doc Henderson came back in, checking on both mother and baby with a professional eye. He pronounced them both wonderfully healthy, considering the difficult delivery. You did well, Amelia. Real well. This little one has a strong set of lungs and a good appetite. Y'all are going to be just fine. Thank you, Amelia said, and she meant it with her whole heart. For everything. Seeing a happy ending like this is all the payment a man needs, the doctor replied. But I won't say no to that smoked ham you promised me, Declan. Now you two get some rest. The doctor stayed a few more days to make sure they were recovering right. In that time, as Sarah proved to be a healthy, hungry baby, the Ward Ranch saw a steady stream of visitors. Reverend Mitchell came by to bless the little one. Miss Whitmore brought a beautiful handmade quilt, and Billy Patterson brought a carved wooden rattle. The very community that had watched Amelia's arrival with doubt now came to welcome her daughter warmly. You're one of us now, Mrs. Whitmore said plainly, as she watched Amelia with the baby. And not just because you married Declan either. It's because you've proven yourself. You survived a rough winter, you saved your husband's life, and you've worked this ranch like you were born here. And now you've brought new life to this place. That's what makes somebody frontier folk, and you've done it all. Margaret stayed at the ranch for that first week, helping with everything from the cooking to the laundry, to teaching Amelia all the little tricks for taking care of a baby. The bond between the aunt and niece had completely changed. All that old bitterness just melted away, replaced by something real and true. Your mama would be so proud, Margaret said one night, watching Amelia soothe little Sarah. Not just of you as a mother, but of the life you built. I was wrong to push you. This ranch is where you're meant to be. I'm glad you see that, Amelia replied, and I'm so glad you're here. Having family close means everything. Family, Margaret said with a warm smile. That's exactly right. The days cooled as September turned to October. The ranch found its new rhythm with the baby. Sarah was a good baby, a good eater, and a decent sleeper. Declan and Amelia just looked at her every day, amazed she was real. Declan took over more chores so Amelia could rest and heal, and he didn't mind it one bit, not when it meant his wife and daughter were happy and healthy. In the quiet evenings after all the work was done, the three of them would sit by the fire. Declan felt a kind of peace so deep it almost scared him. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up from this dream, he admitted one night, that I'll be all alone in this cabin again, and you and Sarah were just my imagination. Well, if it's a dream, we're having the same one, Ben, Amelia said, leaning on his shoulder. Though my dreams were never this good, or this messy, my goodness, the things that come out of that child. Oh, I know, Declan laughed. Trust me, I've been on diaper duty. And you've been a natural at it. She kissed him on the cheek. You've been wonderful at everything, Declan Ward. Even though you doubted me at first, it just made proving you wrong all the sweeter. They sat quietly for a moment, just watching their daughter sleep. Declan finally said, I used to think I needed a simple woman, someone practical for this life. I figured all that beauty and refinement meant a woman was weak and couldn't handle the hard work. And instead you got me, Amelia said with a little smile. Instead, I got you, he agreed. Someone beautiful and refined, but stronger than anyone I have ever met. You saved my best horse. You saved my life. You had our child like a true warrior and then got right back to it. He turned to look right at her. You are amazing. We just needed someone to truly see us. And we found each other, even if we were too bullheaded to see it at first. So what you're saying is, we're two lucky fools, she teased. Exactly, he said, and kissed her with all his heart, just two lucky souls in the whole Montana territory. Winter came again, but this time the Ward Ranch was a new place. The lonely cabin now sheltered a real family, filled with love. Margaret visited from town, bringing news and her own fierce affection. Hope, the filly, was growing into a fine-looking horse, just as they knew she would. Snow covered the garden, but the cellar was full from the summer's hard work. The cattle were healthy, and the ranch was thriving under their care. One cold December night, a year after the blizzard, they sat by the fire. Declan and Amelia held their baby girl, Sarah, between them. At 3 months old, she watched the fire, waving her little fists at the light. Remember this time last year? Amelia asked, her hand on Sarah's chest. I remember thinking I was a fool for chasing that horse into a storm. And I remember needing to tell you I loved you before we ran out of time. She smiled at him. Well, just look at us now. Look at us now, he repeated. A year ago, I was scared to lose you. Now you and Sarah are my everything. Y'all are the reason my work matters, the reason I come in from the cold. That's what love does, Amelia said softly. It gave two lonely people a second chance. He knew she was right. He had always feared love would make him weak, but it had done the exact opposite. It gave him a strength he never knew he had. Love gave him the courage to build something that would last. I used to think I needed someone simple, he said with a smile. Someone who wouldn't ask for much. I figured that was safer. But instead of safe, I got you. You expected everything, and you gave everything right back. You showed me that opening your heart is the bravest thing a man can do. He gently touched Sarah's head. You gave me a family again. Amelia's eyes welled up with happy tears. My only regret is that I only have one lifetime to love you and watch our daughter grow. This one life we're building just doesn't feel like nearly enough. Then we'll make every single day count, Declan said, pulling his girls close. We'll make it worth 10 lifetimes. A lifetime's worth. Outside, a gentle snow started to fall. It was nothing like the hard blizzard from a year back. Inside, the fire burned warm and the baby was cooing, happy as a clam. They held on tight to the little family they had made and the future they were building together. The Ward Ranch would only grow from there, you see. They were blessed with 2 more sons and another daughter, all of them healthy and strong. Hope's bloodline made their horses famous all across the territory, and Amelia's garden grew big enough to be a blessing to all their neighbors. Margaret lived a long, full life and got to see all her grandnieces and nephews born. But the foundation for all that good fortune was laid in those first hard months. That's when a lonely rancher and a desperate bride chose to be brave instead of scared. They looked right past their own assumptions and built something real from the ashes of their old lives. Years down the road, when folks asked Amelia how she ended up on that ranch, she would just smile and say, he needed someone who truly saw him. And I needed the same. We found each other right when we were supposed to. And when they'd ask Declan how a fella like him got so dang lucky, he would look at Amelia with that same wonder he always had. I thought I needed someone common, he'd say, but I got someone extraordinary. That's not luck. That's grace. But the real truth, the one they both knew in their hearts, was simpler than all that. They had both been beat down by loss and loneliness, and by some mix of desperation and pure old fate, they found each other. They found one another, and they chose to be brave enough to build something real. And that bravery, that choice they made every single day to love and trust, it changed everything. It turned a piece of land into a home. It turned just surviving into a life that was truly worth living. As Declan looked out at his land with his family safe in Borwick, he finally understood. He understood the lesson his parents had tried to teach him. Love didn't make a man weak. Love was what made surviving possible and what made it all worthwhile. And every day for the rest of his life, Declan Ward woke up grateful. Grateful he had been brave enough to open his heart to that stranger who changed his whole world. They chose love, even though it was a scary thing to do. Both were running from lonely paths, but instead of just escaping, they found each other. And that's how they found their home. Home was not a place on a map. It was the safe harbor they built for one another, a place made by choosing to face this world together, day in and day out. That right there was home. That was everything. As the Montana sun rose, Declan Ward knew. He was finally right where he was meant to be, with the person he belonged with. This life was nothing like what he had asked for in that matrimonial newspaper ad. It was so much better. It was real, messy, and filled with good, hard work. And it was absolutely, wonderfully perfect.